Darling, this is no worse than pantomime. It's called double entendre.
If you had the chance to be the next Doctor, would you take it?
Would I?
Well,
Could you have the question again, please?
If you had the chance to be the next Doctor,
Yes.
would you take it?
You first.
Yeah, I like the money.
No. I mean, I like watching it, so I don't actually want to be the next Doctor. But, no, I enjoyed the show so much, and I've enjoyed everybody that has played the Doctor so far, that it would be a loss to me not to be able to assume the position on my sofa with a cup of tea and watch the show as it goes out, which is when I like to watch it. And I always know how good it is, because if my cup of tea has gone cold, it means I've been on the edge of the sofa watching it. Whereas if my cup of tea's sort of, you know, and I've sipped a bit and it's still warm, then it hasn't been the best episode.
Yes, I agree with some of the things that Katie has said, except just one thing. I couldn't be the Doctor because I am Mike Yates.
Yes, Mike Yates or Joe Grant coming in and saying...
I'm not Joe Grant, no.
Well, now that would be interesting.
Oh, yeah, it would in these transgender days. Would you like to be the captain?
I don't think I'm army material.
Are you not?
No, darling. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, I don't do rules.
That's true.
You know, I don't do orders, and nor did Joe. Good question, though, sweetheart. Would you?
Yeah.
She would. There you go. Good girl. Right answer.
I think I'm told that there's a possibility of a female Doctor
Every
next time.
year we have the same piece of information. Wait and see.
Well, I can see her. She's sitting there with blonde hair and a red top.
The great thing about, you know, every year when they announce that there's a new Doctor, and I get interviewed a lot around those times when one's leaving and one's coming in, you know, is everybody kind of... I'm very happy because I love surprises. And I'm very happy just to wait and see what I'm given, rather than, you know, thinking, oh, could it be this, could it be... But every year you get the same list of names, and you get the same, will it be a woman, you know? And there are some roles that are written very strongly for men.
There are, but I must admit, we've got a new Brigadier, or Brigadier's daughter, and that really works. I think she's wonderful, Gemma. Yeah.
And the mistress.
Yeah.
Couldn't be better, Michelle Gomez. Both Spanish, which is kind of interesting, Roger Delgado, Michelle Gomez. I think that works brilliantly. As indeed, I think seeing Gemma works brilliantly.
Absolutely.
But the Doctor maybe is a different kettle of croissant. We shall have to wait and see, won't we?
How many people here like an old Doctor? Interesting.
How many like a bit of eye candy in their TARDIS?
Half of the same hands.
12 boys just put their hands up. I'll say no more. Any more questions? Darling.
Yeah. What's your fondest memories of Elizabeth Sladen, and are you looking forward to the event in July, the Sarah Jane Convention?
I'm looking forward to it hugely, and you know, Liz and I had been really good friends, and you know, we'd obviously had a lot of things that we always discussed, because her taking over from John was quite hard, because John got very used to, as you do as an actor, you get very used to working with one person, then somebody else comes in, and you sort of do, no, they do it differently, and you have to learn to work with the new. So it was a little bit of, you know, things that Liz and I had lots to talk about, and then of course she went on to work with Tom, which was just absolutely superb, you know, that. But Liz, I've always felt very clearly in my mind was sort of the quintessential Doctor Who girl. She kind of lived it, she held on to it, she, you know, she absolutely was superb. My fondest memory was, let's put it as carefully as I can, when we fell into that coffin together, when the lid was lifted, what you saw on screen was not exactly how we'd ended up in that coffin. And we had tears running, and Russell T Davies said, if it hadn't been a children's programme, he would love to have shown the outtakes. Joyous. Anyone else?
Just wondering, what was it like, this is directly for Katie, what was it like acting alongside John Pertwee and then a few years later with Matt Smith as the new Doctor? What was it like playing alongside two different people playing the Time Lord?
Well, it's kind of interesting because, you know, obviously we worked with Pat Troughton and, you know, I've worked with several other doctors as well on audio. And what's really interesting is watching one character that has been portrayed by rather a lot, about 12 actors, is it now? Something like that. And to see how they all bring their own special little bit of magic to this one character, and watching how they all... Matt was fascinating because he's a young actor. You know, John, I learned so much from. He was a very experienced actor. As indeed was Pat Troughton and William Hartnell and so on. And to, you know, and I've worked with Sylvester, so I know how he approaches it, and I've worked with Peter Davidson, and I'm now currently working with Tom Baker and so on. And to see how they, but Matt was amazing. His physicality was absolutely stunning. And he had the audacity, when asked what it was like working with me, he said, well, she's as mad as a box of frogs. And I said, have you ever worked with yourself, Matt? He's wonderfully bonkers, incredibly creative, and also very, very generous, you know, in the difficult scene that we had, just the two of us. And you have to measure those scenes very carefully. His generosity to give me the space to breathe those emotions, which had to be very layered and very Joe-esque, if you know what I mean. And he was absolutely fabulous. I think they've all been brilliant.
I think I would approach that question about what was it like playing with somebody else playing the Doctor? And I think I'd probably answer it from a different angle, and that is that I did a series with Tom Baker, an audio series.
I'm listening to it now on the Radio 4 Extra.
Oh, really? Which has been successful. There were 15 CDs that we did. And I didn't regard it, I didn't think for a moment, oh, it should be John Pertwee. No. I just was, as an actor, I was working with another actor, actually. And obviously, the situations are Whovian situations, and I was my character, but I was just playing with another person, a regenerated person.
Well, you have to respond to the person, and you have to balance your performance and your reactions to what they are giving you. So you're not looking for it to be who it was, because it isn't.
And actually that would be a disastrous thing to do, because they would annoy you so much. Oh, he doesn't do it like that, that isn't the Doctor.
Well, that's what happens sometimes when people do take, you do get a bit of it. But they all give, as I said, the unique performance that they give. When I worked with Sylvester, Joe is slightly different, because Joe is listening and responding to somebody who approaches situations differently to say how John would. And you do that in any form of acting. You know, when you're doing a long run in a show and something, you have to listen. That's the most important thing of acting, is listening. And when you're listening, you are literally reacting to how that person delivers their thoughts. And as I say, a lot of people don't realise. And there's a man dressed as a pirate who thought he could creep in. And this is a very short-sighted woman, but my goodness, I can see someone move across the back of the room. But yeah, no, the most important thing in acting, I think you would agree, is listening. Because you can't react if you're not listening to what that person's saying. You know, you can't.
It's a mixture of mainly listening, but also offering something as well.
Well, when you speak.
It's like when you get interviewed, and if our friend here is going to ask us a question or two, presently, and I just answer, or Katy just answers, yes, no. It is impossible for, sorry, what is your name? Matt, it's impossible. Doug. Okay, something changed on route.
Spade on head, Doug.
Oh, okay, right, that's good.
No, it's true. It's like when when people.
You've got to give something. You have to give. And actually, this is where you are very important. And a lot of people who go to a live show are so used to watching television or films, they don't actually give very much. The more you give to us, the more we respond in our performance to you.
Absolutely.
There are 3 people on stage at the moment, 1, 2, and a collective here.
Yeah, it's an improvisation. That's what we do because we don't have a script. And so, we have to, as Richard was saying, there's nothing worse than when you listen to the radio and somebody's doing an interview and they're being asked questions and they say such and they go, yes, no. Exactly.
Where did you go from there?
I mean, John Pertwee taught me something that was really important because I, as a young actress, I'd only done one other television show prior to this, which was a much more grown-up thing. And when I say grown-up, it was quite risque on the other channel. And anyway, John, we started to be asked to do interviews on radio, and I said, how do I do that? I can't, no, I can't do it. And he said, darling, what you have to remember is when people are listening to you on the radio, you have to stop people doing their ironing. Because when you're listening to the radio, you're kind of doing other things. You have to be so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and on the money that people go, oh, what did she just say? And that's really important too when you're doing interviews.
Yeah, and in the theatre, what you have to guard against is women who've kicked their shoes off under the seat looking for them.
Yeah. In the theatre, the lovely thing is, I'll just tell you a quick story. I was doing There's a Girl in My Suit.
Quick story? Katie's never told a quick story.
Oh, trust me. No, my stories are quick. I just tell a lot of them. Always, and there'll always be a punchline, trust me. Otherwise, I'll send myself home. The thing is that we were doing it, and people forget that the cat just...
Who let the cat in?
Anyway, so I'm on stage, and I just walked on stage, and people often back then forgot that when they were in the theatre, that it wasn't the television. We talk to the television. Well, I do. I don't know about you. Do you ever talk to the television?
I shout at it frequently. I've even thrown things at it, actually.
And I have conversations with random people on television. Anyway, and I think we all do that. Anyway, I was on stage, and I literally had just made my first entrance in There's a Girl in My Suit, and a voice in the audience said, "Ear, hasn't she got a big mouth?" Now, can you imagine? I had to continue to do a play, and I started to speak like that. I suddenly, it's the white mouth frog, isn't it? I suddenly became so self-conscious about my mouth.
Well, yeah, I've got a little story about that too, because I played Sherlock Holmes once at the Ipswich Theatre, and we did a trilogy. There were 3 stories, 3 Sherlock Conan Doyle stories, and one of them was called The Dying Detective. Anybody remember The Dying Detective? Anyway, it's a situation where, some nods over there, it's a situation where Sherlock knows that if word gets around that he's dying, Moriarty will be at his bedside to watch Sherlock Holmes's death. And so the Dying Detective, what he does is he actually simulates some terrible illness. And the illness in the script that I had was called Tapanuli fever. Has anyone here had Tapanuli fever? And if you would, could you leave immediately? It's a very disturbing disease, and there's a lot of writhing around and screaming and shouting. And anyway, I worked on this. I've really studied various sort of tropical diseases, and I got into a full method about getting this disease right. And it was a very violent disease, and I thought I was doing it rather well. Anyway, on one occasion at a church hall, I was doing my nut, actually, and suddenly, in a pause, 2 women elderly women were talking, and one said to the other, "If he goes on like that, he'll do himself an injury." I was dying.
It's like John Pertwee told a lovely story. You probably know that it's lovely. Anyway, I'll make it as quick as I can. But he was doing this play, and he was the detective. And at the end of it, there was only one person on that stage, an actor called Bunny Hare. And he was the only person that knew, after a 2-hour play, who had committed the murder, right? And so he's there saying, "Right, Lord Farnsbarns, who was it that killed Gladys Philipopoo at, 12 o'clock with a knife in the thigh?" Anyway, nothing. So he said, "Now, come along, don't prevaricate, Lord Farnsbarns. Who was it?" And John said, by this time he's beginning to sweat. Nothing's coming back. And finally he said, "Come along, I know you know," for about the night, and the audience are all going, "What the?" And finally, Bunny Hare looked up and he went, 5 o'clock. And went back to sleep. And the curtain came down. And nobody ever knew who did it.
I did a play at Swansea, and this was The Spider's Web by Agatha Christie. And I'm not going to mention all the names, but I'll just mention one name, and that is a namesake of mine, but no relation, Sabina Franklin.
Oh, sorry. And
Sabina was playing the main part, the main female part. And the play began, a short scene, between myself and 2 other male characters. And we did the scene, it was vaguely comic, and it went rather well. And then the lights went down, and the next scene started, and the next scene was the sort of the big entree of Sabina Franklin. And she came on and looked absolutely wonderful and very glamorous, and said what she had to say. And then the detective comes in. Now, I'm not going to mention who the detective was, because it's not terribly flattering to him. But he came on, and obviously he's got a whole notebook of questions to ask. And he looked at Sabina and he asked her a question and she answered. And he asked her another one and she answered that. And then he didn't say anything more. And there was a sort of awful pause. And Sabina looked at him and said, "I expect you wanted to ask me about..." Nothing. And she tried 2 or 3 times to prompt him. And he turned on his heel and he walked off. And we never saw him again in the production. That was the detective, the main part. And actually, so in fact, the end of the story was simply that the curtain came down, and Sabina, before it came down, she said, "I think I'll just go and see where the detective has got to." And she went off, the curtain went down. No, I lie. The curtain didn't come down, she went off, and for the next 10 minutes, the 3 of us had to improvise a scene in front of 2,000 people in the Swansea Grand Theatre. It's a Welsh story, this. Actually, the tailpiece is quite dull, but what happened was that Sabina came back on... What?
I tell long stories. I just aged a year.
No, well, as I've got the stage, I'm going to take it. Yeah. No, all your stories are so fascinating.
No, they're just quick. No, I'm kidding.
I know. And anyway, she came back later and she said that Mr. X had been overcome by heat, and the play would resume in 20 minutes. That was key, in 20 minutes. And anybody who would like to leave, we'll give them their money back. And actually only 2 couples left out of 2,000 people. And what happened in the 20 minutes was that in this particular production, they wrote in a police constable who had a notebook.
I've lost the plot now.
Have you lost the plot? Have you lost the plot?
No.
Thank you. I haven't lost the plot. It's only you've lost the plot, darling. And the police constable was sticking the script in his notebook, and he knew all the moves, and he actually virtually played the detective, and did it very, very well indeed. So there you go.
And I got your round of applause after that.
Yeah, well, I'll remember that.
I think the terrible thing about having actors on stage, we could tell theatrical stories forever. So we'll stop now, won't we?
Yes, it will. Okay, and I think you should have a round of applause for that.
Another question from the young lady.
So one thing that I like to ask is you've been talking a lot about like which doctors you'd like to work with and everything, but which of the doctors have you liked to watch on screen? It can be from either the classic series or the new series.
Which of the doctors did we like the best?
Which doctor do you like watching on screen best? It could be classic, could be new series. Was
John
that right,
Pertwee.
darling?
John Pertwee.
Or did I just make up that question?
No, that's right, yeah.
Thank you. I'm paying attention.
I'm
I
deaf.
just had to say something. Have you noticed, I looked at my jacket in the mirror just, and I realised it looks like a mutant. Anybody who ever saw the mutants, I just had to say that. I'll go back to my chair.
Is that an answer to your question?
You answer, the mutant will be quiet. And
I've answered it already. I said John Pertwee.
Pertwee.
I think, what was the question? Which ones do I like watching best?
Yes.
John Pertwee.
I honestly, there are a few exceptions that aren't as exciting to me, but I absolutely love watching all of them, especially I've loved the new series run with Matt and with David, and I love Chris Eccleston and, well, Capaldi. So it's, I mean, much as of course, John, but that's kind of natural. But in terms of enjoying, I'm seeing wonderful actors, and that makes me extremely happy.
I think there are, in fact, as you've got them both, two answers to the question. One is either the one you work with, two is all of them.
Yeah.
And actually, we are very lucky because, and we and you are very lucky because we've had a remarkable set of 12 or 13 doctors, isn't it? Yeah.
13.
Counting the film.
14 then.
14, yes, absolutely.
Most people don't count the War Doctor, but that's always number 13.
Oh, I think all this, you know, that all gets a bit silly, doesn't it, really?
Well, do you think-
Paul McGann was marvellous, and Peter Cushing also did the film. I like Peter Cushing, but that didn't quite work for me.
Katy, do you think that Matt wants to ask us a question?
Well, Matt knows all he's got to do is ask.
Yes.
We've got a young man there that's got a question, and then I have one for you myself.
And you know what? He's going to get his own back now.
Yeah, he is. I'm afraid so, yeah.
Okay, so if you ever had the opportunity to reprise your roles an episode in the brand new series, would you ever take that opportunity to be on television again as your characters?
I don't think they've heard that question.
What? Would you, if you were asked, would you reprise? Look at us. If you were asked, would you reprise your role as Captain Yates, which you've probably been up by then? Would you reprise your role in the new series?
Is that the end of the question?
Yes, dear. That was the rest of it. So can you give a nice little answer? Thank you very much, Mr.
Yeah, Katy Manning. That's my answer. What was your question? What was your question? The thing is, it's difficult to hear up here.
Yeah.
Sort of climbing in your ear hole.
When?
Now.
No, you asked a serious question, but I don't think the people
That
behind you
was
were.
the question.
What?
The lovely little chap over there who's sitting next to Doug's spade-on head, right? I'm listening. He said, if you were asked to reprise your role as Mike Yates in the new series, would you do it before I die?
What does reprise mean?
I want my mummy.
Well, I'm very lucky because I have. I've reprised it in audio, and yeah, that's cool. I'm very happy to do that. I'm actually going to tell you a little tiny weeny short story. May I tell you? While you recover, while you come back from the dead. Yes, that series of audio, Demon's Quest, Serpent's Quest, Hornet's Nest, that I did with Tom, I was able to come back as Captain Mike Yates in audio, and it was fantastic. But do you know how I got that part? That part actually was written for Nick Courtney, and he was going to, and he and Tom are very good friends, and they were going to do that series. Nick died, and no, it was just very ill. He was just very ill, and he said he couldn't do it. But he asked the BBC to rewrite it for me, and I thought that was the most wonderful legacy, if you like. You know, it's a wonderful bequest, and very generous of him. And you know,
that
the rest
was
is history.
the closeness that we had, in absolute truth and honesty, the closeness that we had as a group of actors who'd all come together, didn't know each other, and we had a very, very special bond, which goes right through. And you can see it on the screen, you can see it with us, you know, that we absolutely, and so Nick doing that shows you what a wonderful team we were, that caring, right, if I can't do it, then my young man here is going to do it. And he was a very generous, caring.
And generosity, actually, there's something about, that's an example of generosity and working together. And I always think that the things that we learn as actors to become, hopefully, better actors are the same things that society needs to make society a good society. Things like cooperation and generosity.
And creative truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, but we don't have a perfect society, and there are quite a lot of things that, if you're an actor, you would question, and you would say, well, maybe they haven't got that particular quality. I'd say one other thing, too. There are only 3 of us left now. Katy, me, and John Levine.
And Terence Dix from that era.
Oh, and Terence, yes, but I'm actors on stage. And actually, Katy and John and I really like working together.
You're like the Three Stooges, honestly. We are bonkers when you put 3 of us together.
I know, absolutely. And it's
totally bonkers.
I think you people, we've seen that you appreciate seeing the unit together again.
And I always pointed out by saying, yes, I did come back in the Sarah Jane Adventures, which also Nick Courtney had, which was wonderful, and therefore Russell T Davies, I mean, who I think is one of the great genius, wrote that wonderful script for Joe. And also, as Richard knows, you have new audios coming out where we are all back together again. So Joe has kind of got a whole second life, which has come through very strongly, as Joe is now, not young Joe, but older Joe. So I get doing the both now.
I always thought you were.
Nodded off in our own interview. Thank you so much, darling. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.